Good afternoon, coaches, and welcome to our first Intune with Sports webinar for the year. We thought that this year would be best to start with a little bit of a contentious issue as our first webinar, because we believe that it's an issue that needs to be dealt with, and normally it only gets dealt with when something goes wrong or when it goes to the media. Saying that, I'm pleased to see that a lot of the coaches that have actually joined today, that have registered for today, come from schools that are making already a huge difference and making a huge effort to assist kids fit in at this school and make this school all inclusive. And you know, that's a good thing to see. It's a good thing to see that coaches are interested and teachers are interested, and we've even got some headmasters here that are interested in actually learning and seeing what other people do to try and make their schools more inclusive. Unfortunately, there's no perfect solution to the issue, but we have a lot of schools that have at least opened the dialogue on the issue, and it can improve their schools as an education institution. Theo, one of our journalists that I think a lot of you guys know, and he should be on the webinar today. If he hasn't joined already, he will join any minute now. Him and I talk about it quite often, saying that, and you guys have all heard it and read in his articles, that school is primarily an education institution. And that school's primary purpose is to make sure that kids that leave the school can be prepared for whatever they face in the outside world. So as an education institution, to educate kids about different cultures, religions, genders, socioeconomic conditions is extremely important, and how to deal with these kids, not only in the school space, but when they leave the school place, how to deal with people, different kinds of people that react differently to different situations, that come from different backgrounds, is extremely important for the kids to learn at a very early age. And through interaction at schools, it's an easy way for them to learn. So we've only got an hour, and this is quite a big issue, and there's a lot to be spoken about. So I'll get started in talking about and introducing all our speakers. So our first, one of our speakers is Ompilo Ramela. As you guys know, he's a Lions cricket player who went to St. John's College in Joburg. He was president of SACA and has been involved in play and movement. He's also served on the board at Cricket South Africa. But what a lot of people don't know is that he works for Tutu Trust and assists with bursaries for teachers and nurses. So he's very much involved in helping people, assisting people, getting people from different backgrounds, giving them bursaries and giving them opportunities to work in crucial, extremely important parts of a society, especially being teachers and nurses. And with the coronavirus, I think they're some of the most important people in the world at the moment. Lux September is he's actually one of my mentors, another one of our speakers. Lux and I go back to the 2010 World Cup, where he was working with FIFA. Lux has worked in various World Cups with FIFA in various different competitions. He's also worked in various senior positions at SAFA, including, in the PSL, including General Manager of Media and Broadcast. And now he works with CAF in a new position that he's got to CAF, so he can actually talk to us about a little bit about his new position. But Lux is also here because he's on the board of the Wazi Project. So the Wazi Project is a social movement with the sole aim of developing future leaders, including education to build knowledge and unlock opportunities. He's also director of Tsoma Kai Farming, where he feeds a lot of people in the area around him. He's actually got a farm that he's got, and he feeds people. He deals with different kinds of people, from the people that are battling to sustain themselves, all the way up to people that are big board members as I said, in FIFA and CAF and stuff. So he's dealt with a lot of different kind of people. Ricardo Katza is another one of our speakers. He's an ex-Bafana Bafana player who's well known for playing at SuperSport United. Ricardo is now director of football at Grey College in Bloemfontein. And yes, Grey plays football and has played football since the 1970s. But so do a lot of schools in South Africa, even though they're considered non-football playing schools. There are a lot of schools that aren't considered football schools, but they actually play football. And there's especially a lot of the Model C schools and private schools play a lot of football. So it'll be interesting to hear what Ricardo has to say, because Ricardo has been also instrumental in working with kids from different backgrounds to help them fit into Grey College. And I must admit that Grey College has now, while I'm talking to the cricket and rugby guys too, have actually embarked on a very big project of allowing kids, or not allowing kids, but being more open to kids from all different areas to feel comfortable and welcome at the school. They've identified an issue there, and they're not the only school. I'm just using them as an example. They're not the only school. There's lots of schools in the country have done that. And they're trying to help kids out, so much so that last year, if they actually had played rugby last year, they would have had the first ever black captain of their rugby team, which is for me, it's a huge step from a perception that people have got about Grey College, and it's nice to break down that perception. Now, Coach Mzeki is a successful Lions coach, so he's our last speaker for today, because we actually had one of our speakers pull up, but I'll get to him later. Coach Mzeki is a successful coach of the Lions under-21 team. They reached the finals of under-21 Provincial League where they lost to the Bulls. He's also the Cares Director of Rugby. He's been assistant coach and more recently coach of the SA Schools team, where he deals with different kids from all over the province and all over the country. That with the SA Schools rugby team, the kids get together for a week before the opposition from the Six Nations arrive. They have to play against these guys. They have to try and get them to get together, gel, coach them, and get together and play against the Six Nations side. That a lot of those kids have been playing since, I think it's the under-13s, if I'm not mistaken. They've already played Six Nations since the under-13s. So they're squads that know each other very, very well. So the final conversation was the final coach was actually meant to be the coach that started this conversation back when he spoke in one of our webinars in November. And that's Coach Socio, Coach Socio from the Lions. He's the under-19 coach from the Lions. He's currently working at the Cubs week, and unfortunately he had a bad day in the office today. His team lost to KZN, but he's dealing with a disciplinary hearing because of one of his players. But that's also a role of a coach, and it's one of the things that you have to deal with when you're dealing with different kids from different backgrounds, and how to deal with different. It's not even different backgrounds. Also, now you're dealing with different personalities when you're coaching. So Sia was meant to. I was actually going to start off with Sia talking, explaining why he actually started the conversation. But what I am going to do is I will show you a little clip that I showed, and I think some of you guys that watched the seminar that Sia spoken saw the clip. And it's a clip that we got from the Kai Majula week, where one of the players spoke about his coach and what his coach has done for him. And I think it's a nice way to start off the conversation. And from then, everybody will turn on their cameras and we'll be able to talk to all our speakers. Give me a second to share it.
So I've had the luxury and to have obviously Graham October supporting me. Gershon Rob also plays a massive role. They do a lot more than just look at my cricket. They tap into my personal life and they make sure that I've got everything in order in my personal life. They take care of me financially, they take care of me emotionally, so everything. They're basically just massive role models in my life. And to work with someone like Gersh, who was a fantastic first-class bowler as well, is also a privilege, and I'm really glad to have him in my corner as well. But those two have really been phenomenal in driving me and getting me to this point.
So welcome coaches, welcome and speakers. You guys can all turn on your cameras. I think the first person that I'll ask, since it's a cricket person, well, a cricket character that we actually showed. I think Ampila, what do you think when you actually hear about what these guys, what Gershwin and those guys have actually done for Sia here? Because I mean, he's a phenomenal player.
Thank you very much, Sean, for organizing this event. Welcome to all our guests and to my fellow speakers. I think in any athlete's career, you need mentors, you need coaches. And I think what that young man is expressing is that it's a sense of gratitude that where he is and how he feels at the moment, he wouldn't be there if he didn't have the support structure. And I think many people can vouch for that for any athlete to start to prosper and to reach their ultimate goal, one, they have to be authentic. Two, they also have to have a brilliant support structure. And then they can show up with their natural talent to be harnessed by coaches, mentors, and to really polish off the talent that's already there. So I think the young man is really pointing to something that's important in school sports. Most schools often want to have experienced that they want to put players in a box rather than actually allowing their natural ability to shine, and then giving the necessary parameters to mold that talent. But I think that's what ultimately what coaching is about. Coaching is about taking a player from point A to point B and making sure that you leave that young person with an impact in their lives. So I'll stop there in terms of what that young man is expressing, but I think schools have a big role to play in this because they are the nursing grounds. That's where talent gets nurtured before it turns professional.
And I think what he also shows is that he's a player that comes from a township area, that the guys actually went out, they did a whole township development program, they found him. And when he talks about what he has to actually go through as compared to, let's say, a more affluent kid, where they have to worry about his clothing, they have to worry about his food, they have to worry about, since I know him quite well, I know that Graham October's actually had to go through to his parents' place and actually buy food for his mother and his son so they can have food on the table. So it sets a different kind of, let's say, focus that what you've got to have on a player like Sia here, whose parents, he's sitting there at school having a nice meal because he went to Rondebosch, if I'm not mistaken. And meanwhile, his mother and his brother at home can't put food on the table. So it's a different way of thinking about what this kid's got to go through and dealing with him compared to a kid that's got 3 meals a day and gets dropped off in a I don't know, just put a Mercedes for an example at school. It's a totally different way different kind of kid that you have to deal with.
Sure, Sean, if I may interject there, because I think my contribution, or at least what I think will be my most important contribution to this conversation, is what you are alluding to, because I think most of the panelists are involved in school sports, so I'll let them speak on that with more detail and more of a lived experience. But what I want to highlight is that when we discuss school sport in South Africa, we must realize that we're discussing two streams. There is the Model C/private schools, and then there's also the township schools. And I think we've got to get to a place where we understand both streams, and that our mentality as coaches, that when we look at athletes, we see precisely that, irrespective of the environment. All we have to do at the high level is that understand the township environment and what are the needs for that environment. Because I often argue that when you grow up in the township, there are a number of positives, right? You've got your family there, you've got your culture there, you've got your friends there. Those things are important to allow you to be you, right? There are some negatives of living in that environment, but there's also those positives that lead to an authentic human being, to someone who can express themselves with confidence and they can be themselves. Right? When you go to private and Model C schools, a lot of the time, if you move from a township to a private school, you get the infrastructure. And that infrastructure, together with the resources, it allows you to be a better athlete. But those are two markets that we often have to discuss simultaneously. And I think if we are going to grow sport in South Africa, we've got to speak to those two markets. We've got to speak to those two environments and allow kids that there are some kids that will develop into international superstars from the township. The question that we've got to answer is, what do they need in that environment, and provide for that. It's not always the case that moving a child from Model C to private schools, you'll necessarily get the goods. So that would be my contribution to how we should be looking at schools in South Africa more broadly at a high level, and how we should be trying to shape our schools and how we should be shaping our athletes. And understanding that as a coach, if you are dealing with a young person from the township, there is a certain environment and a certain culture. Rather than trying to break it or change it, understand it, see what its positives are, understand the negatives, and then move from there. So I think we've really got to understand that we live in a complex society with different cultures, and by embracing those cultures, understanding them, and allowing athletes to be their authentic selves will only lead to superstars for our country. And South Africa is not short of talent. Talent is in abundance in our country. Ours is to nurture it. So finally, the other thing I wanted to share with our listeners and together with our panelists is that I'm of the view that we are really filled with talent in this country. But what we fundamentally lack is talent management. And by that, I mean, it's just the ability to take what's in front of you, which is talent, and turn it into gold, and turn those young people into performing superstars, particularly in all the major sporting codes we find ourselves with. So I think that's one area where we've got to work hard as a country. We've got to work hard as schools, managing talent better, nurturing it better, and allowing it to come through. Thank you.
Thanks, Opila. And Lux, I mean, you deal now with also like education, helping kids with education and stuff. What is your take on what Opila says? Because I think he's 100% right. He's kind of like ironed it out and actually spoken about it. How have you approached it from your side?
Yeah. Look, I mean, I unlike Coach Ricardo and others, Coach Mzee, I don't really, you know, I mean, it's not my everyday experience to work with kids and all those other things in schools. Mine really came from a innate point of view. I was born in a rural village in the Eastern Cape, you know. I shouldn't be here, by the way. I mean, by the way, greetings from Cameroon in Douala. That's where I am at the moment. I shouldn't be here. I was born in a rural village with no water, no electricity. The people who are same age and same generation as me, most of them are petrol attendants. Some of them were talented in school or in class, work in gardens and so forth. It's not because I'm brilliant or clever or anything else. There's only one buzzword: opportunities, opportunities, opportunities. Now you can put all this money and all these systems and say all these things, but if you don't give opportunities to people, then as clever as I am, as talented as I am, as brilliant as I am, whether I go to a township school or a model school, I will work in your garden. Or I will be somewhere because I don't have opportunities. But the issue of opportunities is not a matter of taking, I'm sorry, I'm going to make this example because it's always in cricket, it's the one that always stalks me, like a Tammy Tsolegile and take him on a tour and let him carry water and bags for 10 years, and you say, yeah, I'm grooming you, and then that's not opportunity. It's you know, these are different things. So what is opportunity? So one of the reasons actually I started together with some of the people the Ulwazi project, which is the movement I belong to in the Eastern Cape, is because when I was doing matric, I was lucky. I went to East London to quality schools, so I escaped poverty and lack of opportunities and hopelessness by pure chance more than anything else. So when I came back home in matric, I decided, it was June, I decided to go to a winter school, which was in Somo Ngamako at the time, to just go, and because there were other kids who were doing matric there, from the so-called rural and township schools. And I wanted to just play with them and whatever, and also study with them. After 30 minutes of being there, I realized they have no chance in life. They have zero chance in life. The quality of education, the quality of the opportunities. Now, I knew that I would pass matric better than them after 30 minutes of being with them. And I knew that in life, I have a better chance of success compared to them 30 minutes after being with them. When I went back home, after 2 days, I decided no longer to go back there. But when I went back home, my great-grandmother said, what are you doing about it? Now, this was my response, the Ulwazi movement, to say, we wanted to create a platform for opportunities. Now, opportunities without confidence also is nothing. You can take a kid from Soweto and take him to King's or Grey College or whatever it is. But if you don't give him the resources to succeed, the confidence to succeed in the system, somehow the system swallows him. Now, the confidence is the belief in yourself, that you don't need to be anybody else, that you don't need an outside help. You can do it yourself, this thing. This has both an education aspect and also a sporting aspect. Now, through Ulwazi movement that we started, we wanted to give an opportunity for people in the rural areas and townships an opportunity whereby they can have an access to quality education, quality, to have an exposure so that they can see further and they can be empowered from an inner being so that they can be able to express themselves. I mean, one of the reasons I'm a failed cricketer is because when I played it at school, my parents, my black parents could never come and watch me. And whenever I drop a catch, one of the parents would say, "Oh no, the quota player has disappointed us again." So I actually quit cricket. Now, I had zero confidence. Maybe I could have been a better cricketer, maybe not. But I never had a fair opportunity to go through the system. Now, sport and education, before I finish, these things are not mutually exclusive. This country spends so much money on healthcare and education. Now, education is directly linked of kids with sport because the issue sport teaches us excellence. And somehow we think Stellenbosch is the best university because they are somehow excellent in sport. We think Tuks is a great university because somehow they've built a culture in sport. Now, these things are related to each other. Great college, everyone wants to go there, and they used to moor us whenever we play them. But I don't necessarily think the education there is the best, but because there is a culture of excellence. This is the culture we need to cultivate, be it in the townships, in the rural areas, or in the suburbs. Thank you.
Thanks, Lex. I think Ricardo is nodding up and down there quite a bit. Ricardo, you've got something definitely to say about that.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. Thank you once again for the opportunity. A lot of people don't know that Grey is actually a public school. A lot of people don't know that Grey is actually a public school, and it's true what Lux says. The two goes hand in hand. But what I also realized, I remember in 2018 when I got to Grey College, I went to the academics awards evening, and I was sitting there, and on the stage there was the best 10 academic boys, and at number 4 was a black boy, and the black boy was also a football player. And then I realized, and I was so impressed with this because his average was 84%. He was like in the top 5. And then I realized that, and what Lux is saying is that the two actually goes hand in hand, but there is no ways where a boy can be scoring 10 goals every week and yet his attitude in class is not right. So this is where the school comes in, and this is where I come in. I'm at Grey College, known for rugby. Our rugby team hasn't lost for the last 3 years. That's a bit scary, but yeah, our school is known for rugby. But what we have achieved in the last 3 years, we've won the Nedbank tournament of a 24-team school tournament. And I'm not saying this that we won it. I'm just trying to explain to you that what I decided when I got to Grey, I decided that football is not going to be mentioned as a black sport in the school. Certain sports are associated with color. If you look at rugby, they say it's a white sport. If you look at cricket, it's a white sport. If you come to football, they say it's a black sport. And what I've done at Grey College, by the grace of God, I remember I had trials. We had trials for everyone to come, and then I noticed that if I should pick boys according to their football ability, all of the white boys would have not made it. They would have been on the outside, because if you have trials, you are looking for the best players. You are looking for the players that's going to win you games. But then I realized when I say to the boys that as from today, we're cancelling the trials, there's no more trials. And I said to the boys that if you want to play football at Grey College, I will make way for you. And we grew from 60 boys to 150 boys in the space of about 6 months. And most of those boys were white boys. And it's amazing that because I've taken the limitations off, of having trials. Because when you have trials, the best players will always come up tops. And as a football coach, you want to pick the players that's going to win you games. But when you're at the school, I don't think that school sport in general should be about how many games has the coach won or how many tournaments has the school won. It should be how many boys and girls is actually partaking in the sport. Now, like I said, when I got there wasn't a lot of boys playing. Now there's double. Just because we've taken off that limitation and I've included everyone, whoever wants to play, they are welcome to play. Because there's really only one thing that the school cares about, if I can say it like that. It's the first team. So it's the first team in rugby, it's the first team in hockey, it's the first team in cricket, and obviously it's the first team in football. So why should we have competitive teams? Not that we don't want to win, but why should we have a competitive team at under 13 and you play all the strong boys at under 13, but then Johnny, who's coming because he just wants to play football, doesn't get a chance to play because the coach plays the strongest players for 60 minutes. On the end of the day, the boy is not playing. He's going to lose focus or he's going to lose interest in the sport and he's going to leave and where is he going to go? He's going to go to a sport that people are going to accept him. I just want to, Sean, if I may, I just want to make an example about my boy. I've got two boys at Grey College, my own boys. The one is 12 years old and the other one is 8 years old. So Aiden is the bigger one. And I remembered about 2 years ago, in 2018, 3 years ago, when we got there, he wanted to play rugby. Now you can imagine, Ricardo Katza's son, the football player, wants to play rugby. So I had to answer a lot of questions. But anyways, he went the first time, and to be honest with you, he was one of the few color boys, the boys of color. There was about 30 boys, and he was one of 2 boys or 3 boys that was of color. The coach didn't even know his name. But anyway, so I as a father, I wanted to step in and, say a few things. But then I waited when I was at home, and I said to my boy, I said, so what happened today? I was watching you. He says, no, I enjoyed myself. I said, yeah, do you know that the coach don't know your name? He says, yeah, and then he asked me. At that time, he was 10 years old, and then he said to me, Daddy, don't worry about me. That's what he said to me. He says, don't worry about me. The coach will know my name soon. And to me, I saw something, and my boy saw something else. And what I wanted to say, and one of my points is that, like Lux said, there is opportunities, and a lot of the boys don't get opportunities. But you also have to believe in yourself. My boy at 10 years old said to me, Daddy, don't worry about me. He says, I know that I'm one of the 3 boys of color in the team. The coach don't know my name, but the coach will know my name. And it's amazing. 2 days later, I went to watch again, and the coach said, Aiden. I was like, okay, what's happening here? Because Aiden believed in himself. Like Lux said earlier, the opportunities is there, but a lot of times our kids don't take the opportunity. And I think when we don't make it, especially the kids of color, we tend to blame and say, yeah, we didn't make it. Lux said earlier, a lot of the boys or the people that he was with, they petrol attendants, but he said he had an opportunity and he made use of the opportunity. And the nice thing about Grey College is, and what I've tried to bring to the school is that when you come and play football is not a black sport in the school. Football is a sport in the school that everyone can partake in. So that's what I try to bring into the school. Yes, and Grey can play football. By the way, we're getting there. Yeah.
Coach Mzeki, you and I in our chat before this, we actually spoke about purpose-driven decisions, where you actually sit down and say, we've got to make a conscious effort to make a change. And I think that's also a little bit what Ricardo's actually talking about. There's also that purpose-driven decision to actually make a change and actually, sure. I'm battling to get the words out. Sorry about that. But it's a purpose-driven decision to actually become all-inclusive and actually allow kids to actually allow them to grow their natural abilities and actually perform it their own natural way. And you guys have done it. I mean, you're quite big. You're quite driven in that.
Yeah, Sean, thanks for having me, and evening to everyone. Yeah, Sean, I like to use the word deliberate, in that we find ourselves in institutions that, I guess predominantly were white institutions. We find ourselves in a sport, and I was actually just having a look at the stats sort of the stats for the Currie Cup in terms of representation and transformation, etc. We find ourselves in a sport, particularly sports like rugby, at least if I speak for myself, where it's a predominantly white sport. And I use the term white, with all due respect. And if we don't do anything, different, if we as coaches and administrators and by extension the institutions we work at, if we don't do anything different, and if we aren't deliberate in trying to be inclusive, and what does the word inclusive mean? Does it mean we just have a couple of players of color, or whatever the term is being used now, or what does it mean when we say we're inclusive? Do we just bring the people in so that the optics look good, or is it cultivating and facilitating an environment where everyone, we inherit these cultures, particularly in traditional all boys schools or franchises, we inherit these cultures and traditions, and those very same traditions are not inclusive because they were not built to be inclusive, so as coaches and head coaches, we've got to be deliberate in creating an environment where everyone, where everyone, and I say everyone, I mean both black and white players and pupils can thrive. Look, it's easier said than done, and I don't think there's a secret to it, but the word is being deliberate and taking steps, to create that type of environment. So that for me, and without it being manufactured, and I use the word manufactured, it mustn't be a facade. It has to be genuine. Ompile spoke about being authentic. It must be an authentic environment, and the action that is taken must be, deliberate. Lux spoke about, taking players on tours, and so the optics look good, and you take team photos and the optics look good, but the environment is not conducive, for transformation. And transformation doesn't mean you got an X amount of white players or X amount of black players. I think it speaks to the environment itself too. How we take for granted how, whether on either side, whether you're a white player or you're a black player, we take for granted that having a black coach is good, or having a white coach, or in rugby having a coach that speaks English, both English and Afrikaans. So that's the type of environment I'm speaking about.
Yeah, and definitely being in the teaching space, in the school space. So this is where you can actually make a big difference and have a big effect on a child. And the idea of putting a child in a position and just leaving that child there and saying, okay, well, that fills that spot, but not developing the child, doesn't assist the child at all and doesn't grow the sport. And I think a lot of our 100%. National teams are struggling from that.
100%. Ompile mentioned, I think it was Lux who spoke about opportunities. And giving an opportunity is not necessarily saying you come from a township school, coming to a middle school, that's an opportunity. Opportunities dressed in a whole variety of things. We give you an opportunity, but there has to be, Ompile spoke about support, he spoke about mentoring. So often we find these players who are plucked from the depths of poverty in townships and whatever, who come into schools and they cannot adapt to that environment and the culture that is at that school. And then we say, yeah, but we did that as an institution. We then say, you see, we found Ricardo Katza there, and he hasn't really come through. But so much of it has to do with the environment that is being created. And for me, when people speak about an inclusive environment, that's what I mean when they say inclusive environment. Sorry, Lux, you wanted to make a comment there?
No, I didn't want to interrupt there. I was going to pick on a point that Ompile made. He was actually writing a comment here. He was talking about the issue of confidence. He says, and I'm paraphrasing here, Ompile, so forgive me. He says, confidence is a function of a family environment. Now, he's right, but he's wrong. And I'll tell you why he's right, but wrong. The family environment in the African community is fundamentally broken. And it's been like this for years. And it's still going to be like that for a number of years. Now, the reality of it is that the system Even the kids who go to model schools and so on and so forth, they come from dysfunctional backgrounds. Now, I disagree with him. He's wrong. So he's right in the sense that that's where it should come from. He's wrong because sport and excellence has a way of giving you confidence. I'll make an example to you. A couple of years ago, we took some kids from a farm school in East London. And we decided that these kids actually, they should enter as the only all black team in the Eco Challenge, which is run by Peter van Kertz in East London. Now, this is all white schools. Now, this school for 7 years was really struggling. Last year, this school won the competition for the first time. Now, I went to, because there are some kids who've been there, part of the team for the last 4 years. Now, I asked them, why? But now they had the confidence in life because of this. They're from broken homes, they're from different environments. Through them, I saw the confidence that sport gives people to approach life differently. Somehow, they saw themselves as no less because of the opportunities that they have. And by the way, Coach Mzee, stop this thing of people saying rugby is a white sport. Where I come from, the Eastern Cape, we played rugby. Our teams, by the way, this thing of people talking about coders and all, they should have gone to the Eastern Cape in 1999 or 2000, where we worked in teams, everyone played in teams, and there was no mention of whether you are black or white. And in 2021, if we are still talking about this at school sport level, that means the whole system is fundamentally flawed. We have to do a complete overhaul of the whole system. And I might say this as somebody who played rugby, cricket, football, and everything else you can think of. Now,
but you see, Lux, that is the point that I'm making, is that let's use rugby as an example. It's got such rich background in terms of an Eastern Cape point of view, and it being a sport that is being played by so many black people. Yet we sit, I'm looking at a report, a report regarding the amount of black players, colored players, and white players. And based on that report and based on what I see on TV, you cannot convince me that rugby is not a predominantly white sport. I'll give, and those are the numbers, because that's what we see. You know, when I say it's a white or black sport, I'm not saying it's owned by a particular person. I'm just saying it's played predominantly by those people. When I say predominantly, those are the people that get to representation. I'll give an example. 2 years ago, or 3 years ago, I cannot remember, King Edward Cares played JP Boys. Now, fantastic game and whatever the case is. But, you know, out of the 30 players, 23 were players of color. And that did not diminish from the quality of the game. The week afterwards, St. Stithians played St. John's, and there were only 3 players of color. So unless, and I can only speak about institutions that I know who are deliberate in being inclusive, in creating an inclusive environment for everyone. And obviously, numbers and stats we use numbers and stats as an indication, you know, from how transformed the sport is. But for me, the two games and the picture that I saw in both those games couldn't have been further apart.
May I have a go, Sean? So I want to come in at both Lux and MZ. Lux, I agree with what you're saying in terms of the institution being broken, the schooling institution. And I'm going to attempt a tentative answer of why I think it's broken. Because part of this discussion is about where's this thing going? So if you see in cricket, one of the biggest challenges is we've had an over-legislation, what I call an over-legislation of transformation within the schooling system. And what I mean by that is simply that you will have targets that say you must have X amount of black players in a team. And then you will also have targets that say there must be 2 black batters in the top 5, right? That's over-legislating. You're choking the natural mechanism of picking a team, of actually allowing the natural success and failure of an athlete and how teams are composed, right? And any coach will tell you that the minute you restrict them over, you are creating a blockage for them. And that's just it's something I've observed, and I call it an over legislation, right? Because we've legislated inside of a legislation. The other part is that we are, and why I agree with Lux on that the schooling system is somewhat dysfunctional, is that we have heavily dependent on the Model C and private schools for the production of athletes. Less so in football, because football is a less resource intensive exercise. And one could also argue rugby as well. And that's why transformation in rugby is a lot easier than in cricket, right? So where is school sport going? What we find is that the Model C schools have, I think, hit their cap in terms of what they can do for the transformation project by getting players from the township in. They have to now begin a new project, which is the middle class going to those schools and authentically being involved as parents and part of those schools at that level. But what we need a resurgence of schools on the margins or in the townships, right? Where sport in those communities, because there are bigger numbers of players, there's more people that can access those opportunities, even in the rural areas. So we should be pushing for a more inclusive, and by inclusive is actually about broadening access, which connects with what Lux was saying, that you need the opportunities. And what that requires is for us to do what MZ calls to be deliberate, but I often like to say, let us be intentional about transformation, because it's not about taking kids out of their communities. It's about building a society that is more inclusive across the board. And that means having facilities in Soweto, having facilities in the rural areas, and so on and so forth. So I think the conversation has to go almost a little bit, or at least if we are hoping to turn the corner for athletes in all our schools, right? We need to actually change the trajectory of participation. I think the participation rates are extremely low at the moment. And the one sport, the one sporting code that actually is the fastest way, I believe, to find athletes for any sport is athletics. And that is the one sporting code, if I can call it that has declined immensely in South Africa. You know, I recall when I was growing up in Soweto, you would be running, jumping on, and it's a very, in a sense, a cheap sport, but it also allows you to be able to see someone who's got hand-eye coordination, who's got what an athlete needs. It gives you access into seeing people that can actually play sport and other sport, not just athletics. And I think if we can also start having more conversations about how do we introduce kids at a young age to athletics, because they form a critical part of identification. So I think those are my comments for now. Lux, I think we need to take the conversation about confidence offline, because we won't have time for it, because I disagree with one or two things, but I think I don't want to exhaust that one. But yeah.
It's a question that you've actually answered on the chat, but I think it's also, how do you measure that you're successful as a coach or a teacher in actually having an all-inclusive side and in allowing kids to actually play at their natural abilities? Because a lot of coaches are pushed by results. So you get a certain kind of player because that plays under your style of rugby, or cricket or whatever it is. But then you've got other players that come in that are slightly different. How do you actually measure your success? Do you measure it because you don't mind, losing games because you're going outside of, as a coach, as your comfort area, but you've socially developed all your players, you've given them all opportunities to express themselves? Or do you just focus on just results driven, and you've got a certain style of play and you discard other players because you need to look after your own position, your own job?
I'm going to give a skip past to Zach and Ricardo there. They are specialists in that position. I was just commenting in the chat box there.
Look, Sean, I don't think all those things are exclusive to each other, to be honest, Sean. I think we somehow have the opinion that a coach that only wins doesn't teach or doesn't instill values of enjoyment. So you can't convince me that, Grey College haven't lost a game in 3 years. You can't convince me that, none of Vessel du Plessis' players have enjoyed the game. None have walked away, as better people. None have been taught sportsmanship and all those type of things. So I think as a coach, yes, we judge on results because that's really important. And if winning wasn't an aspect of sport, we wouldn't have scoreboards to start off with. And I think there's value. There's so much value in teaching kids how to win. I think there's value in teaching kids how to how to get positive results, if that makes sense. So I think before I give over to Ricardo, the one point I want to make is just because you want to win as a coach does not mean that you're sidelining other values and other teachings that one can give that one has to give as a coach to the kids.
Yeah, I think as well, what I've learned also being at Grey College, I remember in my first year in 2018, going into 2019, people used to say that Grays think that they are all that, that's what I heard about the communities. And because I started going out on my own and I wanted to get used to the football in Free State, in Bloemfontein. And then the one day I decided to take the whole football, like we were 4 or 5 teams, and we took them to Rocklands, which is a township here in Bloemfontein, and we took them and we played against the Quena Stars. Now you must understand, Grey College, we've got probably the school with the best facilities in Bloemfontein. The kids are used to playing on grass, they're used to a change room. So when we went there, we were looking at the field, and what we didn't realize is that we were actually standing on the field. It was clay, it was proper clay, there was no grass. That was the field. And I was looking around me and I wanted to see where's the lines. And a few of the boys came and they came with a pick and they started drawing the line. They just made lines. They didn't even have chalk to make the lines. And what was nice about the experience, Lux, and this is where the confidence comes in as well, what the sport brings. A lot of the white parents, they came to me and they said, Coach, you should do this more often with us because we didn't know that the townships is this nice, because in their minds, the townships is this horrible place where people get killed every day and you get robbed. And we actually took about 80 kids with parents, white parents, black parents. A lot of the black kids that was playing that day, it was the first time that they played in the township. Can you believe that? It was the first time that some of the black boys at Grey College played in the township. And the white parents came to me and they said to me, Ricardo, we need to do more of this. And then I realized that for me to keep the Grey football only at Grey, it will create a false sense of security. It's nice, the kids are not outside the comfort zone. In that same week, when we were done playing, it wasn't even about the results. One of the black parents came and stood next to me and he said to me, the team is losing, and I said to him, that is not why we are here today. We are here so that we can give kids an opportunity to see how it is outside of Grey. Because I realized that a lot of the black kids, I'm not even talking about the white kids, a lot of the black kids have never played in the township. And to me, when that day was finished, I was so satisfied because in that week, some of the white boys came to me and they said to me, Coach, I was always scared to go to the township. I didn't know that playing in the township was so nice. And Lutz, and what Lutz was saying, sports also bring that confidence. All of a sudden, I saw some of the white boys trying to do some tricks, and I was like, what's happening here? And they said, no, Coach, we saw that from the black boys in the township. And I was like, yes, we should do more of this. We shouldn't put a limit on just keeping the boys in a certain specific when it's nice. You should actually take them out as well. The same like we're trying to bring a lot of the black boys from the townships into the suburbs or into the Model C schools. We should actually do the same thing by taking the kids that's in a nice environment. We must also take them outside of the school. And I think now when you talk about Grey football, you don't talk about a school that has the football that's just there away from everyone else. Now we've played against Brebner, we've taken a team, we played against Navalsig, we've went and we played in the townships, so it also works the other way around, because we can't just say we're going to bring kids and bring them. We should also take kids. I was actually surprised, and I think I can say this. To be honest with you, a lot of the slack that I got that day was from the black parents. A lot of the black parents said to me, Ricardo, why are you bringing us here? They're great, we've got crossing. Why you bring our kids to play here? And in my mind, I'm thinking, where are you coming from? Where did you grow up? Just to find out that our kids are so brought up in this bubble of great college where everything is nice. And that is my goal at Great College, and that's that's what I try to do. I try to put the school out in the community, because to be honest with you, a lot of the boys we can't bring to the school, because if you want to come to Great College, as much as you are an exceptional player in the township, your academics needs to be good. There's a rating system, they rate you. So there's not a lot of opportunities for kids, even if they're talented. So we need to create an opportunity for those boys to be seen. So one of the ways is I try and make it my aim to take the school outside of Grey College and take them into the townships, but not but always having their safety in mind, and the parents. So Mr. Sikwena, that's the last thing. Mr. Sikwena was the head of the LFA. He said when he made the speech that day, he said that it was like taking it's like bringing Real Madrid to South Africa to play against Sundowns. That's what he said about it. And I was standing there and I didn't realize what he was saying, because Gray was always out there, you couldn't touch Gray. Now all of a sudden, there's 80 kids that's playing on a clay field. There's no lines, the net is not proper. But what I saw that day was white kids having a smile on their face. I saw white parents taking out cooler box. They took out the camp chairs, so it's also our responsibility as leaders and coaches to take it the other way around. And yes, for me, Coach Kwanele Kopo of Supersport United, the head of the academy, he used to say to me, he says, Ricardo, I will never fire you for losing a game at the academy level. That's what he said to me. And I couldn't understand it, because because I was a player, I always wanted to win. And then he said to me, our biggest goal is to get as much kids through the system and to let them play football one day. It's not how many games you win. He says, if you do the development properly, there is games that you're going to lose. But once you get the development right, the results will come afterwards. And that's the approach that I've taken on at Grey. And I've let the parents understand that as well. My first parents meeting in 2018, in April 2018, I said this to the parents. I said, if you keep the lights on at Grey, if you pay for Grey to have lights, it doesn't mean that your child is going to play in the first team. And there was just a quietness in the room. And then I just heard a few of the black parents say, yes, it's about time. So what I did was I leveled the playing fields. And I think we need to do that as coaches in school. We need to level the playing fields. Yes, you will have that A team that's going to go around the country and that's going to go and compete. But I mean, if you're 13 years old, and you have one boy who has played 500 minutes the year, and you have another boy that has played 10 minutes the year, then something is wrong with what you're trying to do. We should level the playing fields. We should give boys equal opportunities. And as a coach in the schooling system, yes, you want to win, but you cannot win and lose the kid. For me, holistic development is the most important thing. Just the last thing, there's 2 or 3 boys. We had an excellent team last year. And the year before, and a lot of those kids can walk into football academies, into professional academies. But I said to them, you know what? Why do you want to give up? Because a lot of them is also academically they're very good. And I just got news like today and yesterday about 3 or 4 of the kids that's getting scholarship at Tux, they're getting scholarship at Stellenbosch, they're getting scholarship at NWU, not just because of the football, but because of the education. So we need to balance the two. I know that as the director of football at Grey College, that whatever coach I did coach at the under-9s, he knows that it's not about how many games you win, but it's about how many kids will play And how many kids, when they walk off the field, will have the smile on their face because they participated in the game. And it's not 11v11 at under 9, it's 5v5 or 6v6, and we don't play the full field. You know, all the small things makes a big difference. And when we do that, we will include people. You know, we will include people. We will include kids into our. You know, we need to get the parents around, and yeah, that's just for me that it should also be the other way. We shouldn't just bring it from the township. We should also take our teams and our schools, and that people talk about the so-called white schools. We must take them into the township, and we must show people that sport is not a color. It's a sport. Period. It's a sport in the school.
I take exception at you comparing Sundown, bringing Sundowns in your analogy there. Sundown is a big team.
I know.
Okay, show respect, Ricardo. Okay, that's a top team. Plays in the Cup World Cup. Eh?
I didn't say that. I didn't say that. Someone else said it.
Just one thing on the winning thing, because that actually was the question that was asked about building confidence and that in your players. Now, if you talk to a 6-year-old player, a 6-year-old kid, the 6-year-old kid always wants to win. And it doesn't matter if they lose, they still believe they win. So something in our coaching, in our development of the child, is where we actually teach them that to fear to actually lose that winning culture that they've got, because the kids naturally have got that, they want to win all the time. So if we have to start teaching it to kids at a later stage, is it something that we lose in it? And I'm sorry, I'm going off the point of inclusivity, but is that something that we actually lose when we're coaching the kids? Anyway, because I think Coach Mzee, you actually spoke about the culture of winning quite a bit.
So Sean, my opinion is that, you know, regardless of, sorry, let me put it this way. Each level of sport has different outcomes. So at under 9, having an unbeaten season is not really the objective, you know, if that makes sense. But at varsity cup level, you know, winning becomes important. And as you go through, we've got to balance winning as well as what values these kids are learning or these players are learning, be it in a girl sport or a boy sport, if that makes sense. So, you know, Ricardo made mention of it. The objective of the 9 coach and a 10 coach is really not to win sporting games, you know, but the higher up you go, you know, winning becomes an even more important aspect of the sport, if that makes sense. You know, I hear the cricketers speak about how India have gone on, they've taken 8 teams to, you know, in light of the, obviously, in light of the last series that they won, how they've taken youngsters under 19s and 8 teams to, you know, across down under, and they've built a habit of winning against them. You know, so I think we as coaches we have to be cognizant of at which level of the sport we coach at. You know, if that makes sense. And I think that's the point I want to make.
I think so. I mean, Ricardo, David Muir spoke quite a bit about that last weekend, saying that at a younger age group, a kid can play left back, he can play a striker, he can play goalkeeper. He needs to play around and have fun and enjoy every single position. And that's where, like KFC mini cricket's quite nice, that you play. And also I think tag rugby is the same. You just run around, you play whatever position it is, so you can learn, you can experience all the different positions. There's actually quite a nice comment here. Pila's also replied back to it. It says that opportunities and confidence are inseparable. We can make a difference where we live. So that opportunity is to actually, you know, if you get opportunities and your coach sits there and says, I believe in you, you can do something. Mm-hmm. And this, I think, is something that a lot of the kids from different backgrounds struggle with, because they come in from a different background, they feel a bit left out in the team, and they don't get that confidence. And then they start losing out on opportunities because they're not playing to the maximum of their abilities. So as a coach, you've got to kind of uplift and work in the person's, you know, opportunities to actually give them that confidence to play well and play at their natural ability. I mean, how would you go about actually creating that opportunity, Ricardo?
So what I wanted to say was, one of the rugby boys last year, I showed him a photo that we took. It was we 6 directors at the school, and I'm not getting carried away by the directorship. You know, I'm just saying it's a fancy way for taking care of the football at the school. And when you look at the photo, it's 7 of us, and I'm the only person of color. So I asked the boy. I said, "What do you see?" And then the first thing he said to me, "I see one black guy amongst 6 white oaks." And then I said to him, "But that's not what I see." And then he was surprised. He said to me, then what do you see?" I said, "I see a boy that came from Cape Town that got an opportunity to make a difference in the life of boys at the school at Grey College." And his eyes went like that. And then I said to him, "Gone are the days where we need to talk about color." I said, "When you walk into the gates of Grey College, even though 90% of the school is white," I said, "when you walk into that gates, you are on the same level playing field." I said, "There should be no excuse." I said, "If you fail at Grey College, it's not going to be because of the color of your skin. It's because you are lazy, or you didn't want to bring your part, or you didn't want to do your schoolwork. Because when you succeed, you're not going to mention the color of your skin. You're going to say, I was at Grey College. So why then when we fail," and this also goes onto the football field. And I've never had in the last 3 years had a white boy walking off the field when he lost the game and he said, "Yeah, it's because I'm white. That's why I didn't." No, I've never heard that. So why should we use that also as an excuse? So I said to the boy, I said, "I see myself as a person that got an opportunity in a school like Grey College to contribute to the life of kids." That's all I said. I didn't even put the color onto it. And sometimes also the parents and people that standing on the sides, you know, if the coach don't know what he's doing, he's gonna get the pressure from the parents because they know more, they want to say more. But if a coach knows, I always say to my coaches that's working with me, I said, if I know what you're doing, I don't care who says what on the outside. Because I said to them, the biggest thing for us is to get kids to. I said, I would rather lose a game. I would rather lose a game 1-0 or 2-0 or a tournament than lose kids to drugs or use kids. You know, I would rather get a kid through a school. Because let's be honest as well, out of the 150 kids that plays football, 10 of them will make it, 5 of them will make it. We come from there. At Supersport, we used to have trials for 2,000 kids. You start at 6 in the morning, you finish at 7 o'clock in the evening. 2,000 kids. And so, can I be honest with you, how many kids made it? Probably 5 out of that 2,000 kids. Now you tell me, when you're at school and you've got 1,500 kids or 1,000 kids that's playing sport, is your aim to win as much games as you want, as you need to, or is it your responsibility to get those kids through the school holistically, to make sure that when they walk past someone that they greet, when they walk off the field and we didn't win, that they can walk over to the opponents and shake their hands, you know, and even when they do win, that they will not turn around and just walk away, that they will also go and say, "Thanks for the game." You know, it's about manners, it's about teaching our kids, and it comes down to if we as coaches and people in leadership, if we don't also bring our part, it will filter down to our teams, it will filter down to our kids. So it's important that we bring our part, you know. You cannot have a good team and have a bad coach. You must have a good coach with a good team. You know, if the coach is bad, the team is going to be bad. You know, it should be equal. You know, we should look after each other. So for me, I'm passionate about kids. I love football. I'm passionate about football. But football is not going to take the place of a kid where we can change the life of a kid. I'm not gonna take that. For me, I always say you can lose a game and you'll be sad for one day, but if you lose a kid, that kid can be upset for the rest of his life. So it's important that we look after the kids, for me, more important than the sport.
I just wanted to make a comment quickly here. Sorry, Lux. There is a question here, and it says we're all talking about inclusion in sport and inclusion in schools, and isn't it the irony of it is that we don't actually have a female speaker today? And I wanted to actually address that because we actually had spoken to Claire to Blanche, we had spoken to a couple of women speakers, and unfortunately, a lot of the ladies were busy. They had other things on. Like Claire's only just coming back from commentating yesterday at the Approaches Women. So I am sorry about that. I do apologize about that, but don't worry, that I do understand exactly where you're coming from. And it is a good point.
Yeah. Look, just my parting shot, Sean, from my side, you know, I mean, obviously I'm not a coach. I was not as talented as Ompile and or Ricardo and others on the field, or knowledgeable as Coach Mzee. For me, the most important thing is the role of sport in molding a person, a better person, so to speak, or what Sobukwe would always call a more human face, when Nico would call a more human face. I think the role of sport in giving confidence to people, whether it's in Kailicha or Pulukwane or Grey College, it's a universal thing. And the call for opportunities, people don't want charity. And I'm talking about the have-nots here. People don't want charity. People want opportunities. At Ulwazi, where, you know, our project in the Eastern Cape, all we want, hopefully we will get a bit of funding, because hopefully here on this webinar, there will be someone who says, hey, I'll give you guys more money, because these things, they are just wishes if there is no money to finance them, to create these opportunities. Personally, at Ulwazi, we are not really interested in it. To be great if it happens, that in creating the next Protea Stars, the next Bafana Bafana or Springbok player. We actually aren't interested in that. If it happens, great. We are interested in creating better community role models, because what we realize in the African community is that there aren't any of these. And people can only believe if they see somebody who looks like them having done something. That's why symbols are very powerful and very important in who we are. Now, I see if we can fix and remodel, if people like Coach Ricardo Katza and others can be able to create more opportunities and more access to more kids who will be better human beings for their communities where they come from, to plant a seed so that we can actually have better human beings. So once again, I mean, I have to unfortunately leave you now because I have an operations meeting at KEF coming up in the next 5 minutes. But thanks a lot for this. A lot of people don't want to talk about this in our country. In our country, everyone is obsessed about politics and everything else. We are seemingly losing the energy to talk about things that really matter, like creating quality human beings and leadership. Leadership, leadership, leadership. It is everything. It is the oxygen you need to climb Mount Everest. Without it, all we're talking about here is just wasting our air and time, for that matter. So thanks a lot, Sean. Thanks a lot to everyone, Coach Ricardo and everyone else. And I hope from this conversation, we can be able to take something forward that will add a meaningful contribution to who will be in the future.
Thank you so much, Lux, and thank you so much, everybody, all our speakers today. Unfortunately, we only just scratched the surface, because there were a lot of, and there's actually a lot more to this. This is actually an entire weekend seminar, if not more. I mean, schools, I've seen a lot of comments here, and there's schools all over the place that are doing huge amounts of work at trying to work on this thing all the time. So, I mean, in an hour, you can get so much out of it, and schools have spent years trying to work on this. So, I just want to do one thing before I say my final goodbye to all the coaches, but thank you so much, all our speakers, for talking today. I think we've all learned, and we've got thousands of questions here. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to export all the questions and send it to you guys, because it's just some ideas and some thoughts and stuff that people are that our attendees have got. And I'll also send it to the attendees, because it also helps the guys also think from their side about what other questions are out there. There's just one thing I just wanted to go through just very quickly before everybody leaves, and it's just, so I'll go through it very quickly now. I need to share my screen for you. So there is going to be a bigger seminar coming up at the end of the month. This is not going to be a free seminar like this, the current one that we've got. This is a paid for seminar. We're calling it Growing African Sports. It's a webinar, and it's on the 26th and 27th of February. So the basic idea is to try and teach and enable coaches to learn more about sports, more about their professions. It's on the 26th and 27th of February. We actually wanted to have it in person, but because of the coronavirus, we're going to have it online. The idea of having it in person was that we're going to have speakers in the morning talking, and in the afternoon actually showing their what they were actually talking about in the morning. But unfortunately, because of the coronavirus, we've had to make it online the whole time. But because of that, it also made it a lot more cost effective for everybody. We've got three sides that have actually identified. One is coaching skills. The second side is the business of sport, and the third side is health and wellness, both the mental and physical side of it. So the kind of speakers we've got, and it is a little bit more football focused, but I think you can actually learn a lot from other sports. But we've got David Muir, ex-Crystal Palace Academy Director. Ricardo had listened to him talking last weekend, and he's absolutely fantastic. He spoke about talent identification and scouting, but he's going to take a specific part of that presentation that he did and actually going to drill down into it and make it more practical for people to understand. And Roland Butcher, who's the first black cricketer to play cricket for England, he's got a football program and a junior program in South Africa that he's going to be talking about, and he's going to be talking about what he does. He actually works at the University of the West Indies. He's the director of sport there. Then we've got Mohammed Manib Ali, where some of the cricket guys will know about him because he worked at Western Province Cricket. He got stuck here for the beginning part of the coronavirus in South Africa. But he worked from about, I think it was about August last year until about, well, he left here in about July this year. So he was in South Africa for nearly a year, talking about the method of scientific coaching in sport. Dan Ashworth, he's an ex-professional football player and current technical director at Brighton and Hove. He's going to talk about that. They've got a system, and I remember where Brighton and Hove, even though they beat Liverpool yesterday, they are at the bottom half of the table. They've got over 600 people studying over 1 million people around the world. They've got 1,000 minutes of over 1 million players around the world. They've analyzed and studied in Dubai. They've got an office in Dubai where they've actually studied these players. And he's going to be talking about how they identify talent and what it means and what you look for and how you classify different kinds of players. And you can say this player will be a green level, which is anybody will want to get your pay as much money as possible to get that player, to an orange level, which is a nice kind of stable player that you can have in your team, to the red level, which, good player, but not good enough for international sport. We've got Duncan Woods, who's talking about mental wellness in sport. He's also got a website that makes it more accessible for people to study about mental wellness in sport and to ask questions without necessarily going to a sports psychologist or somebody. It's a good way to deal with it, and it's a more cost-effective way before you actually start approaching a paid-for sports psychologist. Simpiwe Dludlu, ex-Banyana Banyana player and the coach of the women's under-17s team. Almir, he's actually coaching the Sri Lankan football side, where he's the ex-coach of the Nike Academy and Werder Bremen. Donovan Bell from MD, he's the MD for Silver Tree. He'll be talking about sponsorship, finding sponsors, individual player sponsors, team sponsors, club sponsors, school sponsors, what you need to do, how you approach them, what kind of mechanisms do you use to approach sponsorship. Justin Behrens, again, as I said, it is a bit football focused, a little bit more football focused, but he's from the head of the Scottish FA for Education, coaching education, and he'll be talking about what their plans are. Then quite a few of you guys know John McGrath. He talks about the obstacle as the opportunity. He's an ex-Irish rower that that injured his back, became a martial artist, and now has got 5 world records in power sports. He's the most amazing guy. But he talks about how your mind actually stops you from achieving and exceeding and being successful in life in general, and how you break that down. He talks to sports coaches. He talks to businesses. He talks to a lot of people about breaking your obstacles in life. And the final speaker will be Tanya Williams, who's an ex-South African gymnast. And she's going to talk about coaching kids at a very young age group. So the 4 to 10 to 12 kind of age group, what to look for, how you coach them, and to teach you basic fitness skills for kids. and then how to turn these kind of skills. So you can actually learn just the skills for the kids, and then she can also teach you the business side, how to run a sports business, how to start a sports business, social media side of the sports business and stuff. So it is, it'll be cost 200 Rand for, if you're going to book a single day for the Friday or the Saturday. So if you're busy on Saturday, you can only do the Friday, it'll be 200 Rand or vice versa. If you book for both days, it's 300 Rand to cover both days. But if you get 10 coaches together, 10 people together, it'll be 2,000 Rand for both Friday and Saturday. So that's the special we got on for it. Here's the link. I'll share the link also in the chat, and I'll email you the link for the seminar. And it is quite cost effective for what we're trying to do and what we planned for the seminar. I think it's within a lot of people's budgets, and it's really worth the investment to take part and watch the seminar.